And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news and share a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And if you are listening anywhere else and you would like to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk, and on Prepper University. You can find me on X on @Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. And you can find me on Restream. Not Restream, Rumble. I'm already on Restream. I'm on Restream right now. You can find me on Rumble, and that is Coffee Talk 2 with the number 2. As we get ready to jump off here into the realm of the ridiculous and take a look at how things are going in our insane world today. Our insane world today. And as always, I do read through as many of the comments as is reasonable for the benefit of those of you who are listening and not able to see. And I'll say hello to some of the people that have chimed in so far. See, Helter has joined us here today, as well as James. Tuck, who reminds us to like, share, and subscribe on both channels. Sure would appreciate that. Dragon. John is here. He says cat shepherds. No cats in the room right now, though. Brian is here. Peter is here in New Zealand. And so is Puck. Wants to see cats. And there's no cats in the room. I am sans felines at the moment. But if one saunters in, I'll let you know. As we... Oh, and by the way, I took a hit yesterday. I took a hit yesterday for that clip showing the rioters in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Eagles riots that took place. And in particular, I showed a clip where they were tearing down a truck and looting the truck. And the truck was full of laundered towels. They were delivering towels. So yeah, totally worth it. Totally worth it to be out in the streets, stopping a semi and busting it open. Well, it wasn't a semi. I think it was more along the lines of a moving van size. And stealing bundled used towels. Yeah, we are at the pinnacle of humanity. This is it, folks. You thought you were going to have flying cars? I give you looters stealing freaking towels. And Jeff has joined us. Glad you could make it. Puck wants to see cats. Oh, if one saunters in, you'll see a cat. They're all asleep right now. I know 3 of them are sleeping on the bed. It's the boys' club in there in the afternoon. And Bob has joined us. Glad you could make it. As we get ready to jump in here and talk about FEMA really quickly. FEMA. Nature Nerd says if the U.S. and Europe have such good economies, why are there dozens of countries with double, triple GDP growth in recent years? they have good economies, but the money is being wasted. And JJ has joined us. We're going to talk about FEMA at the beginning of the hour, and this is going to be a Western Journal article. Media blackout, ? Trump's new FEMA has handled 80% of cases in Western North Carolina in 5 days. Biden had 116 days, couldn't do the job, or wouldn't do it, as the case may be. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the Trump administration is taking care of business for North Carolina residents hit hard by Hurricane Helene. And this should have been done long before the presidential election was over. President Trump came in and visited this community, and in less than 20 days secured over $54 million for families in need, 2,600 families that need assistance and hadn't gotten that type of help to get signed programs that we do have, Noem said in a post. In the past 5 days, we've decreased the number of open cases by almost 80%. President Trump is ensuring that communities aren't forgotten And he launched the first major initiative to connect farmers with recovery assistance as well. Hurricane Helene hit the U.S. in late September, causing its worst damage in North Carolina, which was hit on September 27th. And again, this is just now getting fixed, just now getting worked on. Trump denounced the response of the Federal Emergency Management Agency under former President Joe Biden during a visit to North Carolina. At one point, half of the emergency calls to FEMA went unanswered. This is a quote. "That's really bad. FEMA was not doing their job." Quote from Trump, that was. Biden did a bad job. According to calculations by the Western Journal, Biden was president for 116 days after Helene's rains stopped, and yet the region, had not recovered. Region had not recovered. No, some residents still don't have hot water, drinking water, or anything else, and many of them don't have quarters, that is, places to live. They don't have anything. They got a stripping for what they lost, and we're going to take care of it. This is totally unacceptable, and I'll be taking strong action to get North Carolina the support that they need to quickly recover and rebuild. We're working on it very hard, according to Trump. FEMA now says 153,000 households have received assistance since the storm ended. Noem said the recovery efforts of the Trump era have only just begun. Only just begun. Indeed. Peter says he has a cat curled up asleep in the gym with him, if it counts. Sure it does. And David has joined us. Puck says in Biden's defense, he didn't know he was handling anything. No, he didn't understand. He forgot about it after they briefed him. Peter says they just got Tulsi, though. Liberals are in a panic. Nature Nerd says under Biden, if a hurricane destroyed your house, if a Hawaiian or Californian electric wildfire burned your house down, here's $700. Pretty much. And Monkey has joined us. Glad you could make it today. Pretty much. That's what it boils down to. But it says it all right there. 116 days after the hurricane stopped, the Biden administration was still sitting on its hands. Nothing was getting done. 20 days after Trump takes office, 80% of the claims are managed. That says a lot. And why should FEMA do anything when they're not going to be pushed to? If they knew they were working under a weak government, a weak regime that wasn't going to hold them accountable or expect anything, then why bother to do your job? That's when you can sit there and do things like prioritize LGB people and put them at the front of the list like they were doing in Florida, or avoid houses that might have any Trump signage, a command that came down from on high through FEMA. Ryan said Trump rocks and Biden rots. And Anisha says they're from Western North Carolina, but at the foot of the mountain. We had not only the hurricane, but a tornado also touched down in our backyard. Major damage, not a bit of assistance except from family. But that is the difference. And he has moved pretty quickly. Trump has moved pretty quickly, that is. And he's, I worry that he's going to push too hard and run over himself, because he feels like he's in a desperate race, it seems, to try to change or fix or clean up as much as possible, which is why DOGE and Trump have been pushing so hard. But yeah, you can get caught up that way. While we're on the subject of FEMA, and before we move on to the subject of the thumbnail here today, Washington Examiner article, as DOGE targets FEMA, the aid agency is accused of illegally destroying its records. As if they aren't already in enough trouble. Hold on a second. Opened properly. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is set to be a key target of Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, is facing a complaint for reportedly deleting a group chat on the taxpayer's dime. The complaint, a copy of which was obtained by the Washington Examiner, was filed Tuesday by the Center to Advance Security in America. The National Security Watchdog Group is pressing for an investigation into whether employees at FEMA violated federal law when they have apparently deleted an LGBT pride chat on the Microsoft Teams software just as President Trump took office in January. The American public deserves to know when the Pride chat was created in Microsoft Teams and how it was managed, how it functioned, and how it was deleted. CASA Director James Fitzpatrick wrote in the complaint letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, Department of Homeland Security Inspector General Joseph Kufari, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the acting archivist of the United States. Quote, the investigation into this matter will shed light on the allegations regarding the possible wrongful deletion of federal records. What are you trying to hide, FEMA? The complaint comes as DOGE, the Trump administration's cost-cutting effort that counts businessman Elon Musk as its leader, takes aim at FEMA. In a Sunday social media post, Musk said the disaster aid agency is broken, while noting on Monday that DOGE uncovered $59 million in recent FEMA payments to luxury hotels in New York City to house illegal migrants. And we read that story yesterday. Evidently, they did indeed, and that they'll be to recover that $59 million from New York City, because FEMA shouldn't be doing that anyways. FEMA spent tens of millions of dollars in Democrat areas disobeying orders, but left the people of North Carolina high and dry, Trump said Tuesday. It's now under review and investigation. The Biden-run FEMA has been a disaster. FEMA should be terminated. It has been slow and totally ineffective. Individual states should handle storms and etc. as they come. Big savings and far more efficient. And yeah, honestly, every state should be functioning under its own emergency management program without having to wait around for FEMA to show up to tell them what to do. Days after Trump's swearing in, Slate published a report in January that characterized federal employees as fearful over the change of power. The story said a pride chat was deleted at FEMA for fear the membership list might fall into the wrong hands. Is it really an issue of the money? Is it being misused? Is it being redirected someplace that it shouldn't go? As again, this story referred to the story that we read just yesterday, where $59 million was essentially misappropriated by FEMA's treasurer and three others to send money to New York for housing in luxury hotels for illegal immigrants, something that should not be happening at all. Puck says Progressive and State Farm are in cahoots with Bill Gates to buy up land. Interesting. I'll have to look for that one. Joe is here from Nebraska. It's 5 degrees, is it? In Nebraska, it's like 36 out here today. Nature Nerd says state building codes are important so future disasters don't cause as much damage in the future. However, regulations and permits can also slow rebuilding at a snail's pace, causing other problems. And some of them are quite ridiculous, and they change year after year. Like one of the big ones was stair depth in Georgia. They keep changing it. So if you're building a house, the code for how wide or how deep a step should be on a staircase isn't necessarily the same as it was a few years ago. So in theory, many houses are not in code because the code regulation changed for stair depth, but they changed it like three freaking times. Make up your mind, and who gives a shit? You know, you can't tell it. You don't have a uniform stair depth for everybody. It doesn't make any sense, but that's what they do. And Legends is here as well as D-Lo. Peter and Puck apparently want FEMA closed down. Puck says FEMA is another agency mired in the USAID funding scandals. Yeah, I'm sure they are. It's bad. It's really bad. And it's not just FEMA, and it's not just, I mean, there's more than 400 agencies that Elon Musk is going to have to wade through. And the DOGE team is going to have to wade through. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And that's probably also why they're pushing so hard. They're working on USAID, and they're starting to hit the Department of Education and FEMA both at the same time. And they're probably looking ahead, because if you're visionary with your process, you should look ahead. And they're saying, okay, 4 years. Are we going to get through 420 agencies in 4 years? You know, is that going to happen? I mean, how hard are we going to have to push? How quickly can we get this done? What is the margin of error here? Because they might shut something down that might be vital inside one of those agencies. And you might have to sit there and say, oh, well, collateral damage, suck it up. And there's a lot of people that are really upset about it that are going to sit there and say, oh, well, no one elected Elon Musk. Where's his election? And I know I seen Maxine Waters with her sign and her little people group that worship the ground she walks on. No one elected Elon Musk. No one elected him. Yeah, no one elected any of the other thousands of bureaucrats that have been placed into positions by Democrat lawmakers in the last 4 years, from the executive branch all the way down to local government agencies or state level agencies. How many of those bureaucrats were placed with laws that have been getting manipulated since the Clinton administration to make it possible to do that in the first place? Most notable bureaucrat, by the way, appointed bureaucrat, being Anthony Fauci, Dr. Fauci, who ran over this country and lied about it and admitted he lied about it and got a preemptive pardon. Well, you know, when you've done nothing wrong, you don't need a preemptive pardon, do you? But whatever, even though, again, I question that. Can a preemptive pardon even happen? Does something like that even really exist in the first place? It doesn't make very much sense. And I would like to see how that's supposed to work. I would like to see, yeah, somebody said lagging. Yeah, for a sec, I got a yellow marker there that said that there was a connection error, but it looks like it's back on now. So hopefully the audio is doing better. Audio is doing better. And yeah, here really quickly, Monkey says, according to the U.S. national debt clock at the time of this writing, this comment, DOGE has saved $87 billion and change, and counting. Nature Nerd said Obama said the same thing about cutting spending, making it transparent and government efficiency, but the media panics when Trump says it. Yeah, although to credit that, Obama didn't actually do it. He just gave lip service. Trump is the one with the hammer out here actually pounding on people's toes. And again, he tried to play it their way the first time around, and it did not work. So now he's going to be a dictator about it. And I'm not opposed to the idea. You can have a benevolent dictatorship. All governments, in theory, are a dictatorship anyways. If a piece of paper is all it takes to erase your life, the right signature on a piece of paper, they can take anything from you, including your life. You don't have freedom and you don't have liberty. They're all dictatorships. Some are better than others, the way they work. But ultimately, that's what it boils down to. And that's what Trump is doing now. He feels pressed. They feel really pressed for time. How much can we hammer out in 4 years? Moving on, the thumbnail, what we're talking about. This is a Snopes article, so you know it's just going to work out great. No, Chelsea Clinton didn't receive $84 million from USAID. Oh, she didn't? Okay, Snopes. Chelsea Clinton's been vocal about this, trying to walk this back. Listen to their reasoning. The claim: Chelsea Clinton received $84 million in payer dollars from the U.S. Agency for International Development. Rating: false. A graph that social media users claim showed Chelsea Clinton received $84 million from USAID is actually a reference to the Clinton Foundation. Further government data from fiscal years 2008 to 24 showed that USAID had not given more than $7.5 million to that foundation. Finally, tax returns showed Chelsea Clinton did not receive any compensation for her work at the foundation. Now, I like looking at these from time to time because they give some great examples of equivocation in action. Okay, here's Chelsea. That's probably the best photograph of her they could find. And they just fact checked whether or not Chelsea Clinton received $84 million from USAID. But that was never the claim. The claim was that the Clinton Foundation received $84 million from USAID and that Chelsea personally benefited through it, which is plausible. It does not specify whether or not, just because she did not personally get it, just because USAID did not cut a check that said $84 million and 0 cents paid to the order of Chelsea Clinton, doesn't mean that she didn't get any of it. Okay? It doesn't mean that didn't happen. It doesn't mean it didn't go through the Clinton Foundation or some other charity that funneled its way into the Clinton Foundation. And it doesn't mean that she didn't manage to line her pockets. It doesn't mean that money wasn't misused or misappropriated. They fact-checked a different claim, but they're trying to make it look like it's the same claim. Of course, she didn't personally get $84 million, but it found its way around. This is equivocation at its finest. But there are people who will look at this article, they will take it on face value and believe it because they choose to, without doing any research, without doing any examination, and without thinking about it. And that's what Puck and Peter here say. They ran it through the Clinton Foundation. And furthermore, Peter suggests that this particular photo might be enhanced. Yeah, you think they airbrushed her? She's about as lovely as her mother. That would be great. A great way to insult her on the slide. You look just like your mother. Oh, look at you. Sweetheart, you look just like your mother. Spitting image. No, she doesn't look that bad. Excuse me, but the elements are there. The elements are there. So no, she did not personally receive $84 million again, and got her a check for $84 million. But Snopes is doing a nice job of trying to cover for her by sitting there and saying, no, look, Chelsea didn't get $84 million. Look, we can prove it. This is false. This is false. JJ suggests Janet Reno's her real father. Oh my. And Raccoon said Hillary stole millions from donations to pay for Chelsea's wedding. That's what I heard, and her home. That her wedding and her home was paid for on the slide out of that foundation. Meanwhile, Haiti is still tied up in lawsuits look, looking for their earthquake money. Are they going to get it? Something tells me they will not. Something tells me they're going to keep waiting for it. Something tells me that Haiti's not in a position to ask anybody for anything, as they're being overrun by warlords and desperate enough now to be begging for blue hats to come and put boots on the ground. And I sure hope the U.S. stays the hell out of there. Haiti has been a mess ever since their revolution. They have never gotten themselves straightened out. They've never gotten themselves straightened out. But again, just because Chelsea Clinton did not directly receive $84 million does not mean that she didn't benefit from money that was given to them by USAID and other federal agencies in the form of donations to the Clinton Foundation, which she is evidently in charge of. And it does not mean that money may not have been misused or misappropriated or mishandled otherwise by the foundation, by Chelsea or Bubba or Hillary or anyone else. Nature Nerd says, or reminds us, Haiti was occupied by the U.S. from the 1920s to the 1940s. Yeah, it didn't help, did it? Didn't help, did it? As we get ready to move on here. And I think this is a Western Journal article coming up. Calling card for the U.S. U.S. Democratic Party found along with missiles, rifles, and a terrorist weapons cache. That's cute. Packages from the United States Agency for Development, there's USAID again, found last year in a cache of weapons owned by the terrorist group Hezbollah, according to new reports. The reports come at a time when USAID's funding is under attack and the agency is being defended by Democrats, such as Democratic Senator Chris Coons in Delaware, who calls USAID smart power. Smart power. Yeah, it is when you're benefiting from it. The packages were found in Lebanon, and Israeli Defense Forces soldiers say, according to New York Post. From the American taxpayer to Hezbollah with love, Asher Friedman, formerly with the IDF and currently executive director of the think tank Mizgov, Institute for National Security. He said sniper rifles, anti-tank missiles, and explosives were found along with USAID materials in a Lebanese village from which Hezbollah has withdrawn. And there's a picture of it, of a USAID package, which doesn't surprise me because that food, those food and medical packets almost never get where they're going. They're almost always misappropriated or stolen or sold on the black market or something. They don't ever really end up. I mean, they make it sound, and this is the big problem with USAID. Oh, we help people all over the world, more than 160 countries. But a lot of that aid and money and food and medical packets, they get delivered to a country and they never reach those people. Their own governments steal it and sell it on the black market in many cases, in many countries. Or warlords hijack it and use it or sell it. It never gets where it's supposed to go, which is why you shouldn't even bother. I'm sorry. It's a complete waste of time. Like that, we read the article last year, a caravan of almost 100 trucks heading to Gaza with relief, food, and medical supplies that were hijacked. 96 of them didn't make it. Hijacked by tribal leaders and warlords out there that stole all the materials and used it or sold it. It's a complete waste. And it was a charity fund. Waste of supplies, waste of time. Those people never get that stuff. And it's been that way for decades. They never get it. It doesn't surprise me at all that you would find USAID packages mixed in with caches of weapons and supplies from an abandoned terrorist outpost. Whether USAID gave it to them directly or they stole it somewhere or bought it on the black market. Nature Nerd says, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to South Africa or Haiti, two of the most corrupt, poorly run countries on earth. We were propping up bad regimes. And Peter reminds us Trump was not technically convicted. No, if he was convicted, why isn't he in jail? Why isn't he on probation? The judge didn't want to touch it. The higher court, it'll get thrown out. Forum noted that it probed USAID and uncovered $164 million of approved grants to radical organizations, with at least $122 million going to groups aligned with designated terrorists and their supporters. The report estimated that billions in additional aid went through agencies that have consistently failed to vet their terror-tied local partners and show little interest in improving their practices, to the apparent indifference of the federal government. But we know this sort of thing goes on. And not just USAID. Not just USAID. We know this goes on. That they don't pay attention. Or they don't care. Or they're trying to fuel conflict. And I see Cyber Senior has joined us. Glad you could make it today. He says thumbs up. Please do if you don't mind. If you're watching on one of the YouTube platforms or Rumble, you can do thumbs up on Rumble, right? If you're watching on Rumble. And if you are watching on Rumble, that's Coffee Talk 2 with the number 2 on Rumble. I cannot see the comments from Rumble, I don't think. I don't think I can. But this is part of what DOGE is trying to trim. Some of what DOGE is trying to cut out and eliminate. And I'm not mad at them. And people may not like it, but it needs to be done. It needs to be done. Way too much of our taxpayer money is wasted. We're paying too much, and too much of it is being spent. And the solution cannot be to continue to raise taxes and increase regulations to take more money. Sooner or later, that entire system will collapse. Reagan warned us. People may not like Reagan, but he was right. Telegraph article, and I think this is totally staged. School children walk out of Pete Hegseth's speech in DEI protest. Dozens of students walked out of their German school by the U.S. Defense Secretary in protest over Donald Trump's crackdown on diversity, equity, and inclusion. American students at a U.S. military installation walked out of Patch Middle School in Stuttgart for nearly an hour. Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, was booed by a group of adults who live at the military base who heckled him with chants of DEI. About 55 students, you know what? They don't need to be in the military then. They should quit. They should post to leave as soon as their time's up or ask for early retirement. About 55 students walked out in protest of recent events, according to a letter from the school obtained by the Washington Post. Since his confirmation last month, Mr. Hegseth has banned Black History Month celebrations and restricted access to several books in Defense Department schools. And if it's a Defense Department school, that means it's owned and operated by the U.S. military, and it has to fall under their jurisdictions. So suck it. And kids don't protest, okay? Kids are directed to protest. I would like to know, actually, because it doesn't say in the article specifically how old these kids actually are. How old are these so-called children? They were booed by a handful of adults that, you know what, you don't like the way the military do things, get out of it at your next opportunity. Okay? And those booing parents are the ones that put those kids up to it. Because normally, kids don't give a shit about this stuff. They really don't care. And the younger they might be, the more offended I'll be. The more offended I'll be. Peter says it's not being spent, it's being stolen, referring to tax money. Nature Nerd says if we don't cut tax spending now, we'll go bankrupt later and lose even essential important government programs. Tuck says good, when unruly students skip class, the rest of the students get more done. Fair enough. Fair enough. But stuff like this, totally staged. Totally staged. I don't believe it, and I hate it when I see kids involved in anything socio-political. Period. I don't like it. Isn't that right, honey? I've got a visitor. I know some of you wanted to see a cat. Here we are. Granny Smith, everybody. Hang on, darling. There she is. Granny Smith, the cat who will not go outside. And it's a very cold, rainy day, so she wouldn't want to be out there anyways. Isn't that right, sweetie? The lovely Miss Granny Smith. I'll give you one last look, and then we'll move on here. She's a very, very quiet little girl. She gets underfoot a lot because you never hear her. And she doesn't meow. She doesn't really make any noise. When she does make noise, it's like a chirp or a beeping sound. It's very strange. It's like birds. I often call her a little bird because that's what she sounds like, beeps and clicks and chirps. She doesn't meow or make other normal cat noises. Very, very strange. But again, I hate seeing protests at schools. I hate seeing students with signs, especially when they're younger kids, elementary, junior high, kindergarten, because they're manipulated. The older kids are manipulated too, but it's even worse when they're that young. Puck says he has a cat that won't go outside too. Yeah, but this one was a feral that lived under a shed. That we brought her into the house because she was wounded and we wanted to check her. That's why she limps, because her elbow never healed properly. But once she was brought in, she refuses to leave. It's just hilarious. Peter says some of our cats make that noise when hunting. Yeah, that's all she does, though. That's all she does is click and beep and chirp and whatever. Whatever, it's okay. Granny Smith is a good girl. She's a good girl. As we move around here, Fox News article coming up. This just this is your stupidity moment of the day. This article's a little bit older. It's from a few days ago, but this is your stupidity of the day. Joe Burrow, burglary. Joe Burrow, I believe, is a football player. I don't watch football, but whatever. Illegal immigrants pose with luxury loot stolen from famed quarterback's home. And he's famed, I guess, but I don't know who he is. A recent indictment accused of carrying out a substantial heist at Joe Burrow's house in December includes photos of the alleged thieves posing with the Bengals quarterback luxury possessions. Investigators claim about $300,000 worth of items were stolen from Burrow's Ohio home on December 9th, including his JB9 and number 9 chains, completely studded in diamonds. I don't know what JB9 or number 9 is. I guess it's a jewelry company. Photos show the men wearing Burrow's luxury watches and glasses and posing with his stolen Louis Vuitton luggage. Another photo shows possessions laid out on a table, including a large stack of cash. And here they are. Oh, and these are the men from Chile wearing his jewelry and posing with his luggage that they stole. Because they are so confident with themselves and so arrogant. They're going to take pictures, and you can clearly see who these people are. That is so freaking stupid. This comes after 4 Chilean migrants pulled over during a traffic stop the other week, but one of the men is not facing federal charges. I guess he's the one that talked. Jordan Francisco Quiorga Sanchez, Bastian Alejandro Aureliano Morales, and Sergio Andres Ortega Cabello, all from Chile, nabbed by Ohio State Patrol after authorities tracked them in multiple states following the burglary, according to court documents. They were probably following their phones. Here's pictures of some of the stuff they stole. Though that jewelry is very tacky. That jewelry is very tacky. Puck says his jersey is number 9. Okay, that explains some of that. Monkey says he remembers when Ferguson happened and a few of his classmates, girls, 4 of them, decided they wanted to protest, and no one wanted to join them. And the vice principal said if they protest, they'll get detention. And the 4 girls did it and got in trouble. No one didn't even go outside with them to protest. No, why should you bother? Oh, look at this. One of the charms for the necklace is a SpongeBob. Who gets a diamond-studded SpongeBob pendant? But just the audacity cracks me up. It cracks me up that is this him? Yeah, Joe Burrow. Okay, that because I've seen a lot of stories like this where people rob someone, especially if it's a celebrity, and they'll put like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok pictures of themselves posing with jewelry and with cash and with other things that they stole. And it's like the stupidest thing you can imagine. How dumb are you? How dumb are you? You just burglarized a home. You think you would want to cover that up. You think you would want to cover your tracks, bury your trail. No. We're going to put full-on photos of ourselves for everyone to see. For everyone to see. Nature Nerd says their cat likes to live in the garage. If he's outside, he's by the door to go back inside like he teleported there. Yeah, Granny never goes outside. Never goes outside. This story just cracks me up, and I've seen stories like that before, where people get caught because they showed off on social media. Money that they stole from a convenience store robbery or from a burglary or from a smash and grab or a mugging. It's like, why would you do that? You know, they check for that. Local police departments check for that kind of thing. So there's your stupidity of the day. You needed Puck says 33 people on here. I think you're on a troll farm's radar. Oh, yeah? Prime Mover is here. He says not even one of them thought it was a bad idea. Amazing. I know. It's like, hey, don't take my picture. Leave me out of it. Nope. Let's all pose. Let's all pose. Brilliant. Brilliant. We're going to move from stupid criminals to official criminals, and we're going to look at some corruption. This is from the State magazine. Terrible irony. Woman stole $553,000 from Habitats for Humanity's charities. to buy herself a new house. I love it. A former finance director for the house building charity Habitat for Humanity embezzled more than $500,000 so she could buy herself a new home in a better neighborhood. Well, I can't blame her. There was a terrible irony in this case, according to U.S. Attorney Scott Matthews. The irony was that although defendant Ashley Ingram, 35, worked for the legendary charity Habitat, which builds and repairs houses for those in need, she wanted a new house for herself to get out of the crime-ridden neighborhood for the sake of her young child and another child that's on the way. So she's pregnant. Oh, you don't want to be pregnant in jail. That's really bad. I'll tell you about it in a minute if you're interested. Remember, I used to work for juvenile justice. I've had girls who were pregnant. She stole money to put her family into a better situation. Habitat for Humanity trusted her. Lewis said she appreciated the irony, but sentenced Ingram to 2 years in federal prison and a $10,000 fine. Ingram had pleaded guilty last year to theft of government funds. Ingram also has made full restitution of the money she stole, so Habitat got their money back. That's rare. That is rare. Usually they never get the money back, or they only get a percentage. Lewis said she hoped the sentence would serve as a deterrent for anyone who might be tempted to embezzle money. Yeah, that sounds like something her lawyer told her to say. Factored in the same sentence was the relatively high amount of the theft, the fact that Ingram occupied a position of trust, and that Habitat for Humanity is a charity that is dependent on its reputation to raise funds. $553,000. Do we have a picture of her? I don't see a picture of this woman anywhere. I like to show the picture if it's there. You were a victim of confluence of circumstance that made you vulnerable, Lewis told Ingram, but others go through tough times without becoming a thief, the judge said. Jim Griffin, Ingram's attorney, asked for a combined sentence of home detention and probation. Ingram has no criminal record and was highly regarded by those who knew her. Yeah, not regarded highly enough not to steal more than $1. Was remorseful and made full restitution for more than $500,000. What she did was totally out of character for her. I mean, you don't just steal $500,000 though. $553,000. $553,000. The organization had to slow work on 16 houses and pay legal fees for a lawyer with the Maynard Nexum law firm and caused difficulties in fundraising. Habitat for Humanity for Central South Carolina's acting interim director, Emily Fernald, excuse me, I said that wrong. Pucks thinks that Habitat is a USAID funded charity. Nature Nerd wants to know, what if the government made tax write-off deductions for having cats and dogs? I wish they did, because it is expensive. I spend $30, about $30 a week just on dry cat food. $30 a week. Never mind soft food or litter or anything else I need, or medicine if I need it. I wish it was. I wish it was. I wish you could. No, you can't. They'll get you on that. $553,000 from Habitats for Humanity so she could buy herself a house in a better neighborhood because she didn't like where she lived. And it didn't say whether or not the judge accepted her having home confinement and probation, which would mean that she'd have to put an ankle monitor on. But she does not want to be pregnant and in jail. And I had alluded to that when I've had a couple of clients who had a baby when I was working for JJA. And it's a really tough circumstance for them. I mean, they give birth usually at the facility, at the hospital if necessary, basically handcuffed to the gurney. And the baby is immediately taken away by social workers. Often they don't even see it. and then arrangements are made to meet with your baby. Typically, it's something like once a month or once every 2 weeks for an hour, supervised by social workers. So, yeah, that's a real bad situation. Puck says he found her picture. What are you going to tell us about her, Puck? And JJ says no picture of her in other articles either. No picture of her in other articles either. Figures. That figures. As we move around here, here's another good one. More stolen funds. More stolen funds. There'll be a Center Square article coming. Love talking about corruption. Auditors find open funds misused by a charter school CEO. Chakisha Scott. Chakisha. I almost said Chaka. Who knows who Chaka is? Let's see who's paying attention. Puck wants to know, has Elon stolen $500,000 from any of the agencies he's auditing? No, and that's why he needs to be the one doing it. He don't need or want anybody's money. They can't pay him off, they can't bribe him, and they can't blackmail him because they don't have nothing on him. He's the perfect one. He's the perfect one for the job. But this is Chaka, not Shaka, not Shaka Khan. Chaka. Who is Chaka? Let's see who remembers. We'll find out how old some of you are. A recent audit accused an education explosion for the misuse of over $2 million in funds for personal expenses, and this is linked to a state charity. This is government. This is tax money. It's not. They're calling it a charter school. It's not really a private school. Charter schools, because public schools will also zone and call certain schools either charter or magnet, and they're not. The Louisiana Legislative Auditor reported that Education Explosion CEO Chakisha Scott diverted more than $1.5 million of the charter school funds to an account she controlled under the name of Friends of Impact Charter School. The audit states that an additional $171,659 was diverted to a third party by the FICS account, and other funds were used for personal expenses. The auditors also found that another $221,506 worth of funds paid by students and parents were diverted to the FICS account and other accounts not in control of the charter school. Cash payments totaling $71,487 collected by the school were also reported to have not been deposited. I was wondering how they were going to get to this. Golly. Credit card records used her Education Explosion credit card for at least $130,000 and change on trips taken by the Scott family to places like Egypt, Disneyland, Paris, and others. The report also says $166,000 in charter school funds were for the lease and or purchase of a 2017 Acura MDX and a 2021 Land Rover Velar. Oh, wow. Other personal expenses noted in the report accused Scott of withdrawing $42,000 in change from the FICS bank account in 2023 to buy a cashier's check payable to NOLA Motor Cars. Records found by the auditors indicate Scott and her daughter purchased a pre-owned 2018 Tesla Model S from NOLA for $42,371. Evidence that Scott purchased Louis Vuitton bags was also present, so her daughter's doing this too. By improperly diverting funds to FICS bank account and using these funds for her personal benefit, Ms. Scott and her family may have violated the Louisiana Constitution and state and federal laws. You think? You think they might have violated Louisiana laws by stealing more than $2 million from the school? Oh my God. Here it is. Education Explosion is a state nonprofit. That's what I was trying to explain. That operates a charter school in Baker, Louisiana. The nonprofit is and grants given by the Louisiana Department of Education. Again, it's public school pretending that it isn't. The auditors did not audit or excuse me, did an audit of records from July 2014 to January 2024, which showed 99% of Education Explosion funding was publicly funded. 99% of their money comes from tax dollars. Really a charter school. $2 million. $2 million. Oh, Raccoon got it. Land of the Lost. That's right. Chaka was the youngest brother of the primate family. Youngest brother of the primate family. JJ got that as well. And Stacy has joined us. Glad you could make it today. Nature Nerd says, why are there more women stealing funds than men in the news? And I'm willing to bet she's a Democrat. I can't help it. It doesn't say if she has a political affiliation or not. But almost everything, yeah, that's a good point too. Many of the articles, the majority of them that I read about corruption from a lawmaker or from a situation like this, okay, it's usually a Democrat lawmaker. I rarely read one. I can't remember the last time I read one that had a Republican. It's always a Democrat, and the majority of them are female. That's a great point. The majority of them are female, probably at least 60%. I don't have a chart in front of me, but you know what I mean. And Nature Nerd says, I can't believe she taught her daughter how to steal funds. Crime runs in the family. What a terrible mother. And that, hey, you know what? Scheduled, I think it's going up at 3 o'clock today. Is that correct? On Coffee Talk. What is sin according to the Bible? And it will explain that, actually, because you can contaminate people with it. She contaminated her daughter directly by bringing her daughter into that. Cyberjack got that too. Chaka from Land of the Lost, correct. I think one of only two live, dramatic live actions from Sid and Marty Krofft. Sid and Marty Krofft did a lot of crazy stuff like Lidsville and shows like that. The Bugaloos, they're in your hair and everywhere. I think or Far Out Space Nuts with Bob Denver, or John Denver, excuse me. But, or was it Bob Denver? John Denver was the singer. Bob Denver was the actor from Gilligan's Island. I think the only two that they ever did that were dramas was Electra Woman and Dyna Girl and Land of the Lost. And Land of the Lost was a much better show. Electra Woman and Dyna Girl was part of the Krofft Superstar Hour, so it was only segments. And then Land of the Lost was a brilliantly well-written show for what it was. But it only lasted 3 seasons, which is 2 seasons longer than anything else that Sid and Marty Krofft ever did. But they blew it when they fired the dad. The 3rd season, suddenly Dad was the uncle. The dad was gone and the uncle showed up. And the real reason, and that guy went to his grave, never talking to them again. I know I'm going long here now, but I went down a rabbit hole. He came to Sid and Marty Krofft and said, hey, you're doing all this merchandising. We've just done 2 seasons. Where's the cheddar? Can I get a raise? Fired him on the spot. and just replaced him with another actor. And it didn't wash with fans of the show. It didn't feel right in the third season because it's like, who the hell is this guy? And I can't remember his name, but that actor was the same actor who played the astronaut in the live action Planet of the Apes television show from 1974, Primetime, which was actually a pretty good show. I could go on and on all day. I could go on. This is why, if you're into that kind of stuff, you need to go to Open by Chance. Hold on. That's my other channel on YouTube. That's nostalgia. It's all about nostalgia. No politics, no social stuff. Nostalgia only. Because, yeah, I probably know more about that stuff than anything else. And Brian made a donation to the channel. Thank you, Brian. We need all the help we can get with our felines, taking care of them. JJ loved Lion Little Lost. It was well written. If you go back and you watch it as an adult and you pay attention to the storyline, the acting isn't always stellar, but the stories were actually really well written. Really well written for what it was. Considering when you look at it, you're like, this can't be Sid and Marty Krofft. Everything else they did was bonkers. Fun, like HR Puffin stuff. Crazy show, but it was fun to watch. Sometimes that's enough. But with that, we are at the top of the hour, so I will go ahead and start signing off. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com. You can find me on Rumble, Coffee Talk 2, the number 2. And if you're interested in nostalgia, old TV shows, old vintage toys, all that kind of stuff, old commercials, you can check me out on Open by Chance on YouTube. It's fun. It's fun reminiscing about that stuff. Special thanks to Brian for making a donation to the channel today. Always appreciated. Thank you, everyone else who was able to join us for the conversation. As always, hope you got something out of it, and we will catch you